Imagine staring at a 50-ton block of solid rock. Like you
Yeah.
have no cranes, no steel cables, no hydraulic lifts, nothing.
Just copper chisels and some woven plant fiber. Yeah.
Exactly. And your task is to move this colossal rock 50 miles across uneven terrain. And not just move it, but fit it so perfectly against another massive rock
Mhm.
that you can't even slide a piece of paper between the joints.
It sounds like an impossible logic puzzle. I mean, we immediately start trying to solve the logistics in our heads.
Right. We look for the mechanical trick.
Yeah, we obsess over the how. Like, where are the hidden pulleys?
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are completely flipping that script for you. We're stepping away from our modern obsession with the how, and we are shifting the spotlight to a much deeper, much more perplexing question.
The why.
Yes, the why.
Yeah.
We're pulling insights today from this really fascinating text written in the autumn of 2025. It's called Sacred Geometry, the Spiritual Architecture of Antiquity. And its core premise just completely upends how we view human development.
It really does. The author argues that ancient civilizations weren't just practicing early civil engineering. They were actually utilizing this forgotten technology, what they call a technology of mind and faith.
Which sounds wild, but the implications go way beyond ancient history.
Oh, absolutely. It argues that the underlying human drive that raised the pyramids is the exact same shared energy powering the modern projects you are tackling right now.
Yeah, whether you're sitting at your desk commuting or, managing a complex team.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand this sacred impulse to build, we have to go back to the very beginning.
To the cave days.
Right. Think about the earliest days of human existence. If you are an ancient human, your daily caloric math is brutal.
Every ounce of energy has to be geared towards simply not dying.
Exactly. Finding food, escaping predators, finding a cave to block the freezing wind.
And survival is intensely practical. The cave works perfectly well.
Yeah, or a simple lean-to made of branches. So if the primary goal is just survival, what triggers this massive, seemingly irrational psychological leap? It is a massive leap.
Right. How do we go from hiding in a cave to diverting millions of hours of labor, massive societal resources, toward building colossal structures that serve zero biological purpose?
Well, the text states they didn't build to seek shelter. They built to give form to the invisible.
Give form to the invisible. Wow.
What's fascinating here is that this is the fundamental pivot of human history, at least according to the source. The author draws this really sharp distinction between survival and expression.
So it's not just about staying alive anymore.
Exactly. It's the realization that keeping the body alive isn't enough. There is this sudden, overwhelming need to draw closer to the mystery of existence itself.
It makes me think of the difference between eating purely for caloric survival, like just chewing on raw roots to keep your heart beating.
Right, highly practical.
Versus the intense multisensory artistry of cooking a masterful meal to share with people you love. One process just keeps the biological machine running.
And the other has meaning.
Yes, it has intention. But when you apply that leap to architecture, the scale of that meal is just mind-boggling.
It is. And the author actually takes that culinary analogy a step further. They argue that this architectural evolution was, at its core, an attempt at eternity.
An attempt at eternity.
Well, build on that scale is to challenge time itself. It's the human being standing up on the landscape and shouting to the universe, I exist too, I can create too.
I exist too, I can create too. That gives me chills.
It's powerful.
It's a totally defiant act against our own mortality. You know you're going to die, so you encode your spiritual identity into the landscape.
Exactly. You leave a physical mark that proves you were here long after your bones are dust.
Which is such a beautiful philosophical premise. And here's where we get to the tricky part. If the ultimate goal was simply to leave a defiant mark on eternity, they could have just carved their names into a cliff face.
Sure, or painted a massive mural.
Right, but they didn't. They built towering pyramids. They built sprawling, precision-engineered stone cities high in the Andes.
The sheer physical ambition defies the technological reality of their time.
Exactly. So what tools is the author actually arguing they used? Because giving form to the invisible is a great concept, but we still have to reconcile that with gravity and heavy rocks.
Well, the source is very explicit here. It claims they possessed what it calls the technology of mind and faith.
Technology of mind and faith, which to our modern ears sounds like poetry, not engineering.
Right, because we separate science and engineering into one box and faith and wisdom into another.
Two totally different departments.
Exactly. But for these ancient cultures, those boxes did not exist. There was no dividing line between the physical world and the spiritual world. Theology dictated methodology.
Okay, let's make this concrete because the text gives some incredible examples of this.
Yeah.
Take the Hindu artisans at the Ellora caves in India.
Ah, the Kailasa temple?
Yes, they didn't build a temple up from the ground using individual bricks. The text explains they carved it top down into a solid basalt mountain.
They removed something like 200,000 tons of rock.
It's insane. And consider the engineering implications of a top-down excavation.
You can't make a mistake.
Exactly. If you make a single structural mistake at the roof level, you cannot fix it. You can't just replace the stone. The entire temple below it is ruined.
So how does a massive workforce execute a multi-generational project with absolutely zero margin for error?
Right. The author argues it was because their theology dictated that the mountain itself was already a sleeping god.
The temple was already inside.
Yes. Their only job was to carefully chip away the rock hiding it. That specific belief system is what eliminated the margin for error. It wasn't just a job site.
It was a sacred excavation.
Exactly.
And we see that same inseparable link between belief and engineering in the Andes, too. The Inca built fortresses like Sacsayhuaman using polygonal stones.
The ones that fit together perfectly.
Yes, some weighing over 100 tons. They interlock perfectly with no mortar, just stone fitting into stone.
And because of those complex joints, they survive earthquakes.
Right, they shift and settle right back into place.
Okay, wait, this is where I have to push back a little.
Go for it.
I love the idea that their theology demanded perfection, but reverence alone doesn't shape a 100-ton rock.
No, it doesn't.
So are we saying this technology of mind and faith was really just extreme, coordinated manual labor driven by intense religious zeal? Or is the text implying something more mechanical?
It's a great question.
Because zero friction in a team environment is nice, but it still doesn't explain moving a boulder without a crane.
That is the crucial tension the text explores. The author is not suggesting magic. The technology they are referring to is quite literally the invention of scalable human alignment.
Scalable human alignment.
Yes, it is a social technology. Think of normal human labor like a standard light bulb. The energy scatters everywhere.
Right. People have different motives.
They get tired, they argue over blueprints, they resent the foreman. It's highly inefficient.
Constant friction.
Now imagine a shared spiritual intention acting like a lens. It takes that exact same scattered light and turns it into a laser. It is the same raw amount of human energy, but concentrated into a single, unstoppable beam. The author argues that absolute belief functions as the first true piece of heavy machinery.
A social technology. Human belief as heavy machinery.
Precisely. When hundreds or thousands of people believe implicitly in the exact same sacred purpose, something within that group becomes structurally organized on a profound level.
The text actually says something like, when they believe in the same purpose, something in them becomes organized and the work becomes possible.
Exactly. There is no debate about the why. Every single stonecutter, architect, and laborer is moving toward an identical outcome.
Let's apply that laser metaphor to the Inca stones then. If you don't have iron tools, you shape those massive blocks by rhythmically pounding them with harder river cobbles.
Just millions of strikes to slowly abrade the rock.
Yeah. If you are just a day laborer watching the clock, you give up. The sheer tedium would break you.
Of course it will.
But if you truly believe that carving this specific rock is a direct dialogue with the cosmos, that fitting this stone perfectly maintains the balance of the universe, I mean, the level of patience transcends a standard transactional labor arrangement.
And that hyper-focused mobilization is how you overcome the lack of pulleys and cranes. It translates into unified physical exertion.
It's like a synchronized rowing team.
Yes. The difference between a disorganized crowd pushing an object and a civilization-wide rowing team pulling together. Every strike of the stone, every haul of the rope is aligned.
That shared focus is the literal mechanism.
It is. That shared focus allowed the work to be realized.
That dramatically shifts how I view these monuments. We look at a pyramid and marvel at the architecture of the stone. But the text is telling us to marvel at the architecture of the mind.
They literally weaponized human alignment.
And they did it by aligning themselves with something larger, right?
Exactly. The Egyptians aligning their pyramids with specific constellations, the Maya designing elaborate calendars tying human destiny to the stars.
These weren't just decorative choices.
Not at all. They were frameworks for alignment. It gave the labor a cosmic weight.
So if this intense shared alignment, this technology of mind and faith, is what allowed humanity to challenge time and build for eternity, What happened to it?
You mean, did we outgrow it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the invention of the hydraulic crane and structural steel make that sacred impulse obsolete? Did we just trade in our spiritual architecture for pragmatic efficiency?
Well, the source material offers a brilliant bridge to the present day to answer that. The author argues that we haven't lost the impulse at all.
Really?
Yeah, it has just changed its vocabulary. What the ancient religions called faith, modern psychology defines as shared symbolic energy.
Shared symbolic energy.
Yes. Even as our physical tools have drastically evolved, like we traded copper chisels for robotics and stone tablets for global cloud computing, the underlying human drive remains absolutely identical.
We still possess that defiant urge to leave a lasting mark.
Exactly. We still want to build something that outlives us.
That makes me think of a specific quote from the text that just hit me like a ton of bricks. The author writes, "What ancient civilizations called a temple, we call a project. But the impulse is the same, to turn faith into form."
That is the core thesis right there. The modern project is the contemporary equivalent of the ancient temple.
Let's really connect this to you, the listener, right now. Think about the projects you are currently managing.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Maybe you are leading a massive software launch. Maybe you are organizing a local community garden or trying to scale a new startup. When you think about what drains your energy on those projects, it is rarely the actual physical work.
It's the friction.
Yes, it's the misaligned goals. It's arguing in meetings over the why. It's team members rowing in opposite directions.
Because without that shared symbolic energy, the modern project fractures, just like an ancient workforce would have.
You can have the most advanced tools in existence.
The fastest servers, the most sophisticated software, and unlimited budget. But if your team lacks that collective consciousness, if they do not believe in the underlying purpose of what they are building, the project collapses under its own weight.
It's the light bulb versus the laser again.
Exactly. If your team is scattering their energy, you get office politics and burnout. If they are hyper-aligned, you get the modern equivalent of a perfectly fitted Inca wall.
The mechanics of success haven't actually changed, have they?
Not at all. A modern team needs to be just as aligned with the core vision of their project as the Egyptians were aligned with the constellations.
That makes so much sense.
When everyone on your team shares the same belief in the outcome, the friction disappears. As the text noted, something in them becomes organized. That is the exact moment when the impossible modern work becomes possible.
It is incredibly validating to hear it framed that way, to realize that the stress, the endless coordination, the late nights you pour into building a startup or launching an initiative.
They aren't just tedious logistical hurdles.
Right. They are part of an ancient, unbroken human tradition. You are utilizing the exact same psychological architecture that carved the Ellora caves out of a mountain.
You are. You start with an idea in your head which is entirely invisible, and you are marshaling the collective energy of a group of people to bring it into reality, to turn faith into form.
And doing that, bringing an invisible idea into the physical or digital world, is a profoundly spiritual act, even if we usually dress it up in secular corporate language today.
It really is.
It is still that defiant voice saying, I exist too, I can create too. The technology changed, but the sacred impulse to build didn't.
The source really demands that we recognize this continuity. We are not disconnected from the ancients. We are their direct psychological descendants.
Operating the exact same machinery of the mind.
Exactly. We just have it pointed at digital platforms and skyscrapers instead of stone pyramids.
It completely demystifies the past by elevating the present. It tells us that the magic wasn't lost to history, we just renamed it.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's step back and look at the whole picture of what we've explored today. We started by looking at that incredible evolutionary leap.
Moving from building just to survive the elements to building for eternity.
Right. And we explored how ancient civilizations utilized an awe-inspiring social technology, this technology of mind and faith, to act as a human laser beam.
Proving that when collective consciousness perfectly aligns, physical limitations can be overcome.
And finally, we arrived at the realization that your modern projects and their ancient temples are born from the exact same sacred impulse, the desire to leave a mark, challenge time, and give form to the invisible.
It fundamentally changes how you look at any human endeavor. Once you see that shared symbolic energy at work, you start recognizing it everywhere.
You really do. But it also leaves me with a final lingering thought, something I want you, listening, to really mull over as you go back to your own modern temples today.
What's that?
Well, the source makes a very pointed observation. Those ancient monuments are still standing specifically because they were built for eternity.
Right, they were designed to outlast the builders.
Exactly. They were infused with profound spiritual intention, aligned with the cosmos. Every strike of the chisel had long-term meaning.
And today,
Today, we build incredibly complex physical and digital projects at lightning speed. We are still utilizing that exact same shared symbolic energy to organize our teams.
but our modern creations are often designed for immediate consumption.
Yes,
Huh.
they are built for quick quarterly profits. They suffer from planned obsolescence, software that intentionally expires, buildings constructed with cheap materials meant to be torn down in 30 years.
Products actively designed to break, so you have to buy them again.
Exactly. So if we are indeed utilizing the very same sacred human impulse to build, but we are actively stripping away that ancient desire for eternity, what happens next?
That's a heavy question.
Will any of our modern projects actually stand the test of time? Or have we, in all our rapid, pragmatic brilliance, simply engineered our own impermanence? Think about that the next time you log into your team's project dashboard and ask yourself, what exactly are we building for?